When searching for Lilith by J.R. Salamanca, you will find that there is no Wikipedia page, and a cursory scroll through the shopping tab shows only two printings. The hardback, with its wonderfully descriptive cover art, has a price tag of $20 to upwards of $100. Perhaps it's this lack of availability that has attributed to the titles falling into obscurity. My goal with this video is to explain why Lilith should not have slipped through the cracks, and to me, stands with some of the great contemporary classics to come from the early 1960s. The character building in this book is something truly from another world. The story follows Vincent, and the reader sees him grow up and struggle through life. This bumbling attitude where Vincent feels discouraged and like he does not belong fits perfectly with the prospective reader. This book would find itself at home with fans of The Bell Jar or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Upon his first introduction to the titular character Lilith, it is clear that she is different and that he is enamored by her. Beyond Vincent, Lilith is another character which is described and developed so wonderfully and beautifully. She's described as having created her own fantasy world, complete with a language, traditions, history, and people. These people, of course, are delusions, and the reader may believe that that is why she is in the asylum. In a sense, this is poetic and perfect. Here's a young girl who has become so withdrawn from society that she's invented her own world to try to redefine the ideals of life. This explanation of Lilith, which the reader is able to gain more and more information from as they read, is why the book should not be forgotten. As time goes on, it becomes clear that Lilith is full of delusions and even at times a bit unstable, but it is this unstable curiosity that makes the reader interested in more. I was reminded of a line from Yevgeny Zamyatin's We. Children are the only bold philosophers, and bold philosophers will always be children. So you're right, it's a child's question, just as it should be. This quote philosophically wonders who exactly is capable of making correct decisions. In this case, the speaker believes that the children, in their bright and true innocence, are the only ones who can think clearly. This too is the belief of Lilith. She expresses through her delusions a longing for a childlike innocence and love. This actually ends up being a major point of conflict in the novel as Vincent struggles to understand her point of view. I will not say any more out of respect for the watcher of this video so as to not spoil the novel. The development of Vincent's thoughts and relationship with those around him creates a very real and very atmospheric novel. The reader wants Lilith to be real as much as Vincent does. Giving Lilith very strong tendencies of being mentally unstable often makes both the reader and the narrator question what is right. Salamanca chooses to illustrate this through the use of a porcelain doll. Vincent writes about the slow decline in condition of a doll, which has significance to both himself and Lilith. This beautiful imagery gives the reader a different perspective and develops a very intense and mental image of urgency and fear, as the doll symbolically represents the health of both characters. I personally enjoyed this novel because I found it had many similarities to another one of my favorite books, which I've already mentioned, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Beyond the similarities of the setting, the same sense of urgency is developed in the main conflict of both stories. In Ken Casey's masterpiece, McMurphy has a mental battle with Nurse Ratched, and the reader witnesses the decline of McMurphy's strength. Here the battle is with Vincent's ideals and beliefs, as well as what he believes the people should be. Lilith challenges all of that and comes at a great cost to Vincent. The story seems to be perfectly fitting in our current uncertain times, as Vincent too seems to stumble around in life until he finally figures something out. If you can find a copy of this book, I would absolutely encourage you to give it a read. The writing is fluent and flows well. There are many sections which engulf your mind in both thoughts and images, and you will want to read on to discover just how things develop between the characters. Hopefully some part of this explanation and plea has resonated with you enough to make you at least curious about this story. I would like to close this video with a few selected excerpts from the text to illustrate Mr. Salamanca's beautiful writing and vivid images. I don't know, I said, but it seems to me that if there is no God, then virtue is even more remarkable. Because it's voluntary, you mean? Yes, and because it's its own reward. If you don't expect any reward in heaven, and probably not on earth either, then the only reason for practicing virtue is out of respect and sympathy for your fellow men. And that seems even more virtuous to me than simply obeying a commandment. An idealist, he cried. This is delightful. I hope you will come to work here. You have a philosophic mind. We shall be great friends. Still, our humanity couldn't very well exist without its illusions, he said. Our fear of truth is as much a part of us as our love of it, I think. He began to fill his pipe, sprinkling dark tobacco onto the bowl from a bright yellow can. Has it ever occurred to you that half of human institutions are elaborate artistic disguises or compensations for brutal realities? I don't think we should be too severe with Lilith for her own private ones. Perhaps what we resent about them is their privacy and their originality. I don't think I'm much of an adventurer. Oh, I think you are, she said. Why? Will you think I'm rude? You will. No. Well, adventurous people always look rather ill at ease. They're shy, you know, not bold at all, as people believe. They go stumbling about the world, being scolded, breaking things, always looking for a place where they feel they belong. They have that crooked look. That crooked look? Yes, of not matching anything. Other people are sort of smoothed down looking, you know. They get worn away by life until they fit in. But really adventurous people never do. They're full of points and angles that stick out everywhere. They have that crooked look, that terrible uniqueness.